And luckily, we have members of our military here today, so I think we can take care of that if we have any issues in Berry County. So we're going to be good. But anyways, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Limited public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Morning.
Morning.
Courtney Zinni, Commission on Aging. I wanted to thank the commissioners and those who applied to the Commission on Aging Board for a very thorough interview process last week. I was amazed by the caliber of candidates and the questions and suggestions that they had. The process gave me the opportunity to hear what others think about our organization. It gave me ideas for improvement and thoughts about where we are headed. I apologize that I won't be able to stay for the entire meeting today, but I did feel that it was very important to come and share some information and perhaps provide some clarification. There was a lot of talk last week about how Commission on Aging could reach the four corners of the county. To be quite frank, we do. Our Adult Day Service program provides structured supervision for those with Alzheimer's disease or dementia. 33% of those clients are from Hastings, 25% from Middleville, 17% each from the Delton and Nashville areas. We even currently have one Lake Odessa client who was a client before he moved out of county, so we've retained him as a client. Our in-home care program provides personal care, light housekeeping, and in-home respite, and is designed to keep seniors independent in their own homes. We spend nearly $3,000 a month on mileage for our direct care workers so they can serve clients from Strickland Road at the far southern border of Berry County, to Hickory Corners, to M66 in Nashville, to Lake Odessa, to Cherry Street in Freeport, to Bauman Drive in Middleville, to Delton, to 3 Mile Road in Plainwell, and of course right here in Hastings. Our congregate dining provides group meals and social interaction with peers at our friendship centers located in Hastings, Delton, and Woodland. For those in zip codes not serviced by a full-time meal site, we offer the Senior Meal Choice Program. Seniors are able to get nutritionally balanced meals at one of our partner restaurants. Those include Thornapple Kitchen in Middleville, Jack and Judy's Country Kitchen in Nashville, and Bowen's Mill in Delton. I haven't even touched on the Reach of Our Meals on Wheels program. I'm trying really hard to keep it under 3 minutes. Take my word for it. We have 4 delivery routes, and our drivers literally go to each corner of the county. They're delivering meals to our most vulnerable seniors. The street addresses that I mentioned for our in-home care program pretty much mirror where we're going with our home-delivered meals. We're also in the Gun Lake area and a lot of the side streets down in Assyria Township. We literally drew a map, and it is reaching all 4 corners. That was what the comments were last week about. I also want to recognize how hard the Berry County Transit works to make sure our seniors have transportation within the county. In 2022, they provided nearly 12,000 rides for seniors. Over 1,200 of those were to or from our programs. Our organizations work closely together to help promote seniors to remain independent. I've offered this before, but we have a lot of new faces on the board. I really do invite you to come to our building, to our organization, to learn more about the services, to see what we do, to interact with some of the seniors and ask them questions. Again, each and every one of the commissioners and constituents are invited to visit COA. We really want to also get input for the vision, and that was very helpful last week for me to hear some of that from the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. Is there additional public comment?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Vicki Beatty. I'm from Irving Township. I just wanted to say, as a person who worked in family practice for several years, the Commission on Aging in Berry County is awesome. I didn't realize how extensive and how wonderful their programs were until my mom in Kalamazoo needed help. They didn't have anything near what the Commission on Aging in Berry County has, and I just think they're an awesome organization.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
This must be the right seat. Hey, good morning to commissioners. Happy to be here today. I'm Rob Heathis from Yankee Springs. I am the supervisor there. I'm here to share a letter with you that was written by our engineers, Fleece and Vanderbrink. I know many of you know them, and so I'll get started. Yankee Springs Township is requesting a portion of Berry County's American Rescue Plan Act funds, ARPA, for infrastructure improvement in our township water system. The township's water system was installed in 1991 due to groundwater contamination of wells in Section 19. It was the landfill at one time. The original system was designed to only supply drinking water to the residents and the businesses of that area. The township has been making steady improvements to the system to accommodate the service area's growth and address state requirements. That included an elevated water tank built in 2003 and the arsenic treatment system installed in 2007 to remove arsenic found in the township's 2 water wells. The township is currently making bond payments on these 2 infrastructure improvements. Due to the continual growth of that area and the moratorium of drilling new wells in Section 19 by the Health Department, the arsenic treatment system is reaching its design capacity and needs to be expanded. Eagle is also encouraging the township to complete a 2,000-foot water main loop along Payne Lake Road to improve water quality and the reliability of the system. Approximately 750 people are on the township water system, as well as transient customers that are employed or utilize the business area along 179 in Section 19. We are currently seeing a much bigger interest in our business corridor along 179. I think that could be a really nice business area and the possibility of other developments there. Due to the high cost of the necessary improvement, the township is requesting $950,000 from the county ARPA funds to pay for the improvement of that water system. Doubling our arsenic capacity would increase our water capacity from these 2 wells by 40%. Finishing the Payne Lake Road aids the integrity of the system. We know that may be the first step in what we need to do in the future for our township. We appreciate the county's consideration. We would like to request a meeting with the Department of the Public Works Committee to further explain our water infrastructure needs, and please feel free to contact me. I got to meet many of you this morning. That was a nice experience. I hope to talk to you again. We appreciate what you do, and thank you.
Thank you. Is there additional public comment?
Pat Jameson, South Bowens Mills, Yankee Springs Township. Have a few questions about that. Last I knew that we had the trailer park out in Yankee Springs Meadows, they have arsenic in their water. There was a plan, or at least some talk about running a line connecting to the Gun Lake water and sewer, but that was $4 to $5 million. And now they want to upgrade what we already have. What about the people in the trailer park still drinking arsenic? I'm going to bring some water in for you guys next week to drink from there. And then, second off, back to please deactivate Berry County from the blue zones. I stated that they want a remote drop-off for kids. That's not a good idea, I don't think. They also want to, cold showers is a good thing in the blue zones. They recommend that. 85 to 100% plant-based. Another good idea, put a scale where you can see it, so that way you can weigh yourself as much as possible. When you're trying to lose weight, that's always a good idea. And then I always have a problem with the people pushing this, which is some of you. I see you guys get on an elevator an awful lot. You talk about walking, start taking the stairs, please.
Thank you. Is there further public comment?
Good morning. Cindy Twitchell, Prairieville Township. I wasn't able to be here last week, but I did watch the meeting online, and I did appreciate the comments that were made during public comment. Some thoughts came to my mind as I listened were regarding the Pine Lake. Man cannot control nature. Only nature's God can control the nature he created. People make choices to live in nature, but when nature doesn't cooperate with their living in the area they choose to live in, they expect changes to nature to be made. So the question is, should those living around the lake who are not affected by the rising in lake level water be expected to pay for those that it does affect? As for predicting what will take place 100 years from now, there isn't one man or woman who can correctly do so. Only God can see the future because he is the one who has laid that future out. Now regarding prayer before the meeting, my faith is not private. God tells me in Matthew 28:19-20, therefore, go and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Teach these new disciples to obey all the commands I have given you. And be sure of this, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. Amen. I cannot do what God tells me to do in the closet. I must do it publicly. And part of my faith is that I am supposed to go and teach is regarding prayer, private and public. Yes, Matthew 6:6 does say, but when you pray, go into your room, close the door and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. But that one verse is being taken out of context to prove a point. You can't just look at verse 6 to get the real context of that verse. In Matthew chapter 6, Jesus is addressing the hypocrisy of those who call themselves righteous. Verse 2, when you give to someone in need, don't do as the hypocrites do, blowing trumpets in the synagogues and streets to call attention to their acts of charity. I tell you the truth, they have received all the reward that they will ever receive. Verse 5, when you pray, don't be like the hypocrites who love to pray publicly on the street corners and in the synagogues and where everyone can see them. I tell you the truth, that is all the reward that they will ever get. Our forefathers understood the necessity of submitting to the God of nature, which they understood to be the Christian God. They also understood that there will be many faiths and beliefs. That is why they wrote in the First Amendment the way they did. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there additional public comment? Hearing none, we will move ahead with our agenda. We have interviews for the Veterans Affairs Committee. We have 3 slots open, and we have 6 candidates to interview this morning. First on our interview list is Charles Alexander. Are you here?
I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Good morning. If you would tell us a little bit about yourself and why you see yourself being a good fit for the Veterans Affairs Board.
All right. My name is Charlie Alexander. I've been working with the Berry County different Veterans Affairs and with American Legion and the Disabilities of Veterans, DAV, and the FRA, the Fleet Reserve Association. And we all work with different, like cleaning up cemeteries for veterans and different, like I was a district commander for 3 times throughout southwestern Michigan, from Berry County on down to the state line over to the south end of Lake Michigan. And we had 41 posts at that time I worked out of. A lot of driving. And then I've held many positions in the American Legion from the bottom right on up to commander. And I've worked with, the veterans out of department in Lansing for the American Legion. We bring it up all the time about different veterans needing help at our conferences and conventions. And then I've worked with 3 different posts here in Berry County. Middleville Post 140, and I've worked with 484 down Hickory Corners. And I was a member of all those posts too at one time, working out of them. And then I've worked with the Berry County Legion here in Hastings, Post 45. And that's the main one that I work with right now, besides the DAV. And we brought the Disabled Vets Chapter 139 to Berry County here about 5 years ago, 5, 6 years ago. And I used to work down in Calhoun County with the not with Berry County, but with the Calhoun County Chapter 7 of the DAV for about 4 or 5 years there. And then come back up here to Post 45.
That's an impressive resume. You've been busy.
Busy,
You have been busy.
a lot of miles,
Lot of miles.
a lot of people.
We're gonna, for commissioners, we're gonna let our veterans start first. Commissioner Snoker, questions?
Hi, Charlie.
Right,
Known you for a long time. You are a current member of the DAV and helped form it in Berry County, is that right?
correct.
And how many years have you, with everything you've done with Legion and VFW, how many years you been involved?
About 20-some years, 20, maybe even 30, because I used to be a member Post 140 in Middleville.
And you have a couple impressive letters here too. So
Thank you.
that's all the questions I got. Thank you for submitting your application, Charlie.
Thank everybody for my opportunity to be here.
You're going to get
Commissioner,
questions from everybody, Charlie.
Okay.
Commissioner Campbell.
We still get a shot at you, Charlie.
Thank you, Bruce.
Well, I've only had the pleasure of knowing Charlie about a year, but I was a commander down at the VFW in Delton now. And you left out one post, 422, Charlie. Last year we did the poppy sales for the first time in many years. We were short some people, and Charlie stepped up, come out and helped our post at, I believe, Walmart. And
Yeah, we
Charlie, you
worked
do a
2
lot.
full days.
if we had everybody doing as much as you do for the veterans, we'd have it made.
Thank you.
So thank you, Charlie.
Vice Chair Hatfield.
Good morning.
Morning.
As a veteran, I certainly want to thank you for everything that you've done. Since we've moved the Veterans Affairs office in with the United Way, how do you feel that has worked?
Worked pretty good. It's very easy to get to, and we work with all of those programs anyway. Everybody helps everybody. And all the organizations you can get involved, that's just really, really great. And now we've got the Elks involved quite a bit too. They've been coming in and speaking with us at the DAV. And Berry County's been good. We enjoy working. We can get things done. All we have to do is point the people in the right direction, and then they can fulfill their objection or their object of what they're going to do. And we handle, a lot of times we'll get a request from a family, and they're down and out, and we find out who they owe and try to get all the different programs together so we can help them get their bills paid and make sure they got food. And a lot of times too, veterans need help, or their families need help if they lose a loved one of their family members. So we help them in that too. We just try to be there. Anybody makes a request, we work on it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Tennyson, thank you for your service.
Thank you, Bob.
And your devotion to this. I'm assuming you've had many interactions with Ryan and Lanny Forbes on over different programs that we need to try to do better, or can you lighten that a little bit on that?
Well, we haven't had much trouble at all. Everything that we've put forth and asked for, the Veterans Affairs has taken care of most everything.
Yeah, great organization
Yeah,
for what,
yeah.
I just didn't know if you had some input on different programs that,
Berry County, actually, of all the counties I've worked with, of the Ionia, Calhoun, and the other counties down through southwestern Michigan, Berry County is way ahead. And the guys that volunteer, we got more officers in the district over all those posts. 41, well, down to 37 now, but it was 41 years ago. And over the years, we keep losing posts every now and then. It's like your VFW. People aren't volunteering anymore. They're less and less of it. So some of us old timers are still volunteering. We
Well, I
see
think-
an opening and nobody else is standing up doing it, we just raise our hand.
well,
We go ahead and do it.
I've always known that the Veterans Affair in Berry County was very strong organization and
Right.
great leadership, so, thank you.
You're
Awesome.
welcome.
Commissioner Doster.
I have no questions.
Commissioner Colton.
Just thank you for your Navy service, active, and all the service you've done in the community since you've been out.
Thank you, appreciate it. It's a great opportunity for anybody. You learn a lot, you meet a lot of people, you enjoy what you're doing, and that's the biggest thing.
Commissioner Getty.
I don't have any questions, but thank you for everything that you've given to our country and to our community.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I don't have any additional questions either, but I certainly appreciate your service to your country and your continued volunteerism and working with veterans. That is definitely appreciated. So you're more than welcome to stay for the meeting, but you can also leave, and we will contact you and let you know what our decision is.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Have a great day.
Thank everybody.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
Sean Hatfield.
Good morning.
Good morning. Are you Sean?
I am, yes, sir.
Sean, if you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you see yourself being a good fit for the Veterans Affairs Board.
Yes, my name is Sean Hatfield. I'm a new resident to Berry County, so just recently moved a few months ago. I've served in the Michigan Air National Guard for just over 19 years now. Prior enlisted, started out in aircraft maintenance. I currently work as the Communications Flight Commander at the 110th Wing in Battle Creek, Michigan. So I'm a veteran. I've deployed twice, once to Afghanistan, one time to the United Arab Emirates, and then I've been in the Air National Guard, like I said, the remainder of my career. I'm really looking for an opportunity to kind of give back to my local community. I've been waiting a little bit as we're moving to find the right organization to be a part of, and I saw this as a good opportunity for me to volunteer and to try to help the larger veteran community at large.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll start out with Commissioner Smelker. Questions?
Sean, thank you very much for applying. And have you been a member of VFW or Legion?
I'm a member of the VFW national organization right now. Like I said, being that we just relocated to the Berry County, I'm looking for an area or a place to go and be a part of that.
Mm-hmm. And do you know about the DAV?
The DAV, I'm not sure that I do.
Disabled American Veterans?
I'm not sure that I do, sir.
Okay, that's just an organization for disabled veterans. Oh. And I was going to ask you if you were able to join that, but I think,
I'm not a disabled veteran.
yeah. You didn't look like that. So that's all the questions I got.
Okay. Commissioner Campbell?
Good morning, Sean. Thank you for your service and continued service. It means a lot. I don't have any questions for you, but I will give you a 422 VFW post pitch. We're always looking for members down in Delton.
Okay, all right,
You would be a good one.
all right, I appreciate it.
Thanks for being here.
Politician, isn't he?
Commissioner Hatfield?
Sean, thank you very much for your service. I should point out that I don't think Sean and I are related.
I don't think so.
But I'll ask you the question I always get asked. Do you go back to the Hatfield-McCoy feud?
I do get that quite often. I'm not sure on that one, but definitely.
I do. So that's how I figure out whether there's a connection or not. But certainly want to thank you for your service and your interest in getting involved in the community. Welcome to Southwest Michigan, and if this works out, wonderful. If not, I assure you there are many other opportunities to get involved, and we would love to be able to talk to you about that. So, no other questions.
Commissioner Tennyson?
Thank you for your service. Do you have a vision for where anything we can improve, or have you talked to anybody in the Veterans Affairs office? Or?
So not knowing much about the organization yet, one thing, as a member of the Michigan Air National Guard, I'm a part of the Michigan Department of Veteran Affairs. And one thing that our leadership always talks about is becoming a veteran for life. So the day you join, you become a veteran for life in the state of Michigan. And they talk through the continuation of care that you can get and the different programs and services that are available. And so one thing I would like to bring to this seat is kind of trying to help connect those resources with Berry County, probably already connected, but help to foster those relationships. We've got a lot of programs available to us in the Air National Guard that is available to a lot of the veterans as well, and just kind of helping educate, helping to connect those programs.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Doster?
You were deployed to Afghanistan, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Can you explain what you did there, or how that
Yes.
can help looking
Yep.
at this position?
In 2007, I was an aircraft maintainer on the A-10. We deployed as a group to, we first deployed to Iraq, but redeployed to Afghanistan. And I was there for 3.5 months, working on the A-10, and we were flying sorties day and night. So.
And did you learn something from that you can take onto this board?
Yes, I learned, that was really my introduction to service in the military. As an Air National Guard member, it's just 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year. Being deployed, I got to know a lot of my coworkers very well, and I kind of made great friends and have had lasting relationships from that. And that deployment really led to my career that I have now in the Air National Guard. So it really was what stuck with me and kind of pulled me into, hey, maybe this is a great opportunity to have a career and a great organization to be a part of. So.
Thank you.
Commissioner Colton?
No questions, but thanks for your service.
Commissioner Getty?
Thank you for your service. Obviously, it's great to see new residents wanting to plug in and help and be a part of Veterans Affairs, so I thank you for that.
Sean, where did you relocate from?
So we were in Grand Rapids, so Kent
Okay.
County. So I'm a resident of West Michigan, but we've never lived in Berry County. And family circumstances, life, I haven't really plugged into the veteran community and had a way to involve myself. So.
Okay. The questions I had have been answered. Certainly appreciate you coming in for an interview. Appreciate your service to your country, continued service to your country, and we will let you know. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, or if you also can leave if you'd like. So.
Okay. Can I just grab a seat? Is
Yeah,
that-
absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean. Next up, Martin Kratovic.
Morning.
Good morning, Martin. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself and why you see yourself being a good fit on the Veterans Affairs Board.
Okay. I'm a kind of a transplant from many years ago. I was actually born and raised in Rochester, New York. Graduated from college there, Cornell University, into agriculture. I spent first year out of college as an extension agent there. Then I got drafted in 1968 in the Army, and we ended up going to Vietnam from January 1st, 1969 to 1970, February. I started off in the infantry. When I got to Vietnam, they put me in the the engineering battalion, and which I was very happy to do. I was started off as a clerk, and then eventually became company clerk of my unit. And I got the Army Commendation Medal for Service upon leaving Vietnam. I decided to see a friend after I got out in Michigan. Liked it here, so I decided to set my roots here. Start working in Lansing for a couple years. I got an opportunity to work with former state representative Robert Bender on his dairy farm. So I was in agriculture. So I stayed with him for a couple years, and then I ended up buying a farm. When his farm was for sale, I ended up buying a farm in Lake Odessa, and we farmed for 10 years there. The last 20 years of my career, I worked for Caledonia Farmers Elevator. Upon retiring from there, I got into the volunteering, driving with the Red Cross and Hope Network in the Berry County. And I pretty much tried to drive any veterans that had to go to any of the cases, their medical terms or appointments. Since that program didn't operate anymore, I kind of missed that one-on-one conversations with the veterans, and I feel might be an opportunity to get back into working with the veterans. I do use the Veterans Services for medical and physical through the system, and I feel that I'm healthy enough and mentally enough to continue on with some kind of volunteers to work with other veterans on a one-to-one basis. And the only couple of ideas that I had, which I've seen, would like to see the transportation of the veterans in the county somehow get back to some kind of use. We're volunteering to get these vets. I go to the VA in Grand Rapids, and I see a lot of people that really need help, especially my era of the Vietnam veterans. They're the ones that are really struggling now. And I guess that's all. Is there any questions?
Very good, thank you. Commissioner Smelker.
Thank you very much for your service, and I see your birthday is fairly close to mine, so we were in about the same time. I really appreciate your one statement there that you want to give back because you come out unscathed.
Right.
So I really appreciate that statement. I really have no questions for you, but thank you very much for your application.
Okay. Commissioner Campbell.
Good morning, Martin.
Morning.
I have no questions for you, but I have a lot of admiration for you. I, too, was a guest at the country of Vietnam, so I understand where you're coming from, obviously. And I think you'd be a great fit, and I'd love to see you back in there.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hatfield.
Thank you also for your service. How much contact have you had with the Veterans Affairs Office and becoming familiar with how they operate?
With the office directly here in Berry County,
Yes.
I've contacted them a couple times as far as volunteering, and I didn't get a response from that. So I haven't been able, especially during the pandemic, it's hard to get through to talk to anybody.
I have no other questions. Again, thank you.
Commissioner Tunison.
Thank you for showing up today and applying. great honor to, my Uncle Hank was in Vietnam, and I want to appreciate these guys that served too. So I really don't have any questions for you either. So thank you for showing up.
Okay. Commissioner Doster.
I thought your presentation was excellent. I don't have any further questions.
Okay. Commissioner Colton.
Yay, Army. I want to see more Army people there. When I was in the Army, it was peacetime, and we were always in awe and admiration of the soldiers and veterans that were in Vietnam and in Korea. So, thank you.
Commissioner Getty.
I don't have any questions, but again, thank you for your service.
Yep. Same thing, we appreciate your application and your service to your country and your willingness to volunteer. So we'll make a decision at the end of our meeting, and we will contact you and let you know how it turns out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Commissioner Colton, I didn't realize you were a veteran also.
Well, it was peacetime and no scars. It was really an honor.
Okay. John Rocha.
Good morning to the commissioners here.
Dave, your mic is muted. Good morning, John.
Good morning, how are you?
Awesome.
Good.
If you would tell us a little bit about yourself and why you see yourself being a good fit for the Veterans Affairs Board.
So, my name is John Rocha. Obviously, I served as a Marine. Just to interject a little bit of humor, there were no crayons. I asked for crayons to be set up on here. Sitting in front of a commissioner's board as a Marine is incredibly special for me. So I appreciate the Army and the Navy veterans as well. I served in Afghanistan in 2004. And when I left the Marine Corps, one of the things that I think a lot of veterans see is when they leave the service, it's quite literally you turn over your ID and it's, that's it. You're done. You walk away and you're asking questions, well, what do I do next? What's the next step? You've been told everything for a long time. And so one of the things that I built in 2007 with a gentleman that I served with in Afghanistan was an operation called Operation Veterans Overwatch, which was an opportunity for veterans to reach out to people who are getting ready to leave their service so that we can start connecting to them with the services that are available in their communities. We tried to pitch the idea to the DOD, and the DOD did not like the idea. I don't know why. It just is what it is. I know that my buddy in New Jersey is still trying to kind of do some form of that, but we were able to reach to a couple of veterans out there. Since then, I've been involved with the VFW 6841 in Lowell and obviously Post 45 here. I'm not a member of DAV, but I am working towards that as something I'm working on my rating with that as well. I'm currently working with the Elks Lodge and the Will Win that we just did. We did a $2,000 grant for that lodge up north, which is going to be fantastic to do. I'm actually helping with the Elks Lodge as well as putting together a veterans program or a veterans fundraiser in April. So I've been very well involved in not only just veterans services, but the community at large. I've only been in this community for about a year and a half, and I think my name has been out there quite a bit. I've run for state representative. I'm very, very well entrenched in understanding the laws of state legislature, as well as have great rapport with the state legislators as well, and watching a lot of those veterans legislation that comes through and kind of nitpicking that, testifying on the Senate and House floors as well, advocating for veteran services. So that's a little bit about myself. I'm a single father. I'm a young man, and I'll take your questions.
Awesome. Commissioner Smelker.
I know John, and I really don't have any questions for him. I've heard you speak often.
Well, you have a great spelling for the name, too. That's the right way to do it.
Thank you for applying.
Thank you.
Commissioner Campbell.
Semper Fi, John.
Semper Fi. Right.
I knew that was coming.
Gotta love it. I love it. Appreciate that.
Nice to have you here. I had the pleasure of meeting you a while back before the elections and all that, but a guy that's involved as you are with everything, if other people, regardless of what their thoughts are or anything, would just get involved as you have, what a great country we could have.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
So thank you for being here, John.
Thank you. Ra.
Commissioner Campbell. Commissioner Hatfield.
Thank you. John, thank you very much for your service. Can you talk a little bit about your familiarity with, involvement with the Veterans Affairs Office here? And
Yeah, so I mean, you know, even as a veteran, especially moving into the community and stuff like that, I've been able to help people kind of steer them towards the VA. One of the biggest problems, and it's a problem everywhere, but in Berry County and everywhere around the state and the country, people just don't know where to go or who to contact. And that's something that I see as a vision going forward, especially people coming back from service, is we need to interject, we need to outreach more. Veterans are a very proud group of people, and they don't want to ask for help, and they don't want to reach out, and they don't want to be a burden to society. Every veteran knows that. We just don't want to do that. But I've had to reach out to the Veterans Affairs myself before for help. That is what they are there for. We've served our country, and the Veterans Affairs is meant to service us. And so not only have I used the Veterans Affairs before for my own self, but I've actually used it to allow other people to bring them in and reach out to them. So that's the extent that I've done with the Veterans Affairs.
And how do you feel that they can enhance the value of the services that they're providing?
So I think a lot of, it's not necessarily the services that they can enhance, it's the outreach and notoriety of those services. Again, a lot of people don't know that they exist or even where to go to find them. And I think that's the biggest tie-up in communications. We've got to be able to reach everybody, all the veterans in the communications, or in this county particularly, and say, hey, look, we're here for you. You've served, let us serve you. We're here, and be that outreach. I don't think we do enough. I think we can do better. I don't think it's a bad service. Berry County does do better. I've been in other counties. Berry County does a great job, but I think we can do better and really kind of outpouring that and letting people know, hey, we're here for you. And that's what we need to bring more to the table, especially to these guys that are coming back that are young that, you know, it took me 15 years before I found any service, before any VFW reached out, any American Legionnaires. I didn't know about any of this stuff and what they could do, what they could provide. And I think we have to do a better job of reaching those individuals, especially the younger crowd. As we're aging, as we're seeing some of these services and volunteers, and Charles, I don't know if he's still here, but we're seeing these, you know, we're seeing an aging group of people coming out, and we need that young, fresh blood to come. And we need those people to get involved. And that's where I think that we could really, really gain a benefit and increase in exposure.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Colton.
Once again, thank you for your service. I love your energy. I think you'd be a great addition to the committee. I really have no further questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Doster.
No further questions.
Commissioner Getty.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Your energy is always infectious, and
Appreciate that.
I'm sure you do a good job.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Tunison.
Hey, John, thanks for your service.
Thanks, Bob.
Have you, you've obviously got a lot of vision here on what we need to do. Have you reached out and talked with Lanny, Forbes, and Ryan about all these visions that actually run the program?
No, not yet. Actually, I have not. And that's something I'm available to do. I'm willing to do and take on. Whether I'm.
No, I'm not. Don't want to step in, but why? I guess I'm curious as why you have not when you made that statement. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, with the involvement and everything else, I try to get involved as many things as I possibly can. And so that's probably one of the reasons why. With everything else that I'm involved with, whether I'm chosen or not for this board, that's not going to stop or prevent me from spreading that vision and continuing working with the Veterans Affairs. I don't need a title to claim to work with the veterans or help out anybody, and I want to continue to see that vision. And if that means exposing that vision, giving it to other people, then that's what we need.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you, John. I have no further questions for you as well, but certainly appreciate your application and your service to the country and your willingness to continue to volunteer.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Next up, Shannon Zucala. Good morning, Shannon.
Good morning.
If you would tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to continue to serve on the Veterans Affairs Board.
Yes, I deployed to Afghanistan 02-03, then 04 Iraq. I'm a 100% disabled veteran. I'm a single father, raised my kids in Middleville. This helps me outreach and get out to the community, which I enjoy very much. I mean, I came back to Berry County after moving away because it's such a good place to live.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Commissioner Smelker.
Thank you for reapplying, Shannon. Some of us veterans have went to the VA board meetings I've seen Shannon in action at the board meetings. And how long have you been on the VA board, Shannon?
2 terms so far.
2 terms? I was impressed with his work, and I don't have any more questions for him. I think you're a good fit. Thank you, Shannon.
Commissioner Campbell.
Morning, Shannon.
Good morning, sir.
All I can say about Shannon is he picks on Marines.
Go Army.
I've been at a couple of meetings along with John, and I find Shannon to be very active. He's involved with what's going on. He's not a just sit back and listen guy. I really love your involvement over there.
Thank you, sir.
And I don't mind getting picked on. I'd love to see you there.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hatfield.
Thank you very much for your interest in continuing to serve. I'm a member of the United Way Board, and through that, certainly familiar with your work with the Veterans Affairs group efforts, and certainly appreciate it. I don't have any other questions.
Commissioner Colton.
Thank you for your service. I have no other questions.
Thank you.
Commissioner Doster.
What would you say you've learned from your 2 terms on this board?
Always the question is about outreach. How can we reach the veterans more fluidly, more constantly? I mean, it's a perpetual thing. We are prideful, as John said. But also, the best thing is when I owned a business before, I could pay for all the advertising I want, but the word of mouth is number 1. I mean, from it going from recognition to people knowing that they're there. But the advertisement does help, but the word just getting out there is number 1.
Thank you.
Commissioner Getty.
Thank you for your service on the board and to our country.
Thank you.
Commissioner Tunison.
Thank you for your service, and I can see your passion, so appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Appreciate your service and appreciate your reapplication. A couple terms on the board. Certainly nice to have some experience and some longevity on there as well. So thank you, and we'll let you know what our decision here is in a little bit.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Last, Sean Ricketts. Nice of you to make it back in the country.
I flew back special.
Sean, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you'd be a good fit for the Veterans Affairs Board.
Hi there, I'm Sean Ricketts. I'm probably a 25-year-ish member of the community, Air Force veteran. I do have a son who's Marines, brothers, Navy, Army, not so much. We have a saying in our family about Army, I'm not going to share it. Did 5 years in the military, Air Force, 3 tours then. I currently work for the DOD. I've done a few tours in Afghanistan to visit some folks, some folks in the field, and learned a lot through that as far as, I'd say, the difference in the service, how it was back when I was in. You got the Vietnam guys who were completely alone. I was there. I had a phone I could call once a month back home. Guys now are rocking their cell phones and stuff. It's a lot of changes they go through. So Charlie comes through. I look at that guy and I go, holy crap. 7 years I get to retire from my DOD job. Hope to be Charlie. John was up here. I hope to vote for John for president someday. As far as veterans go, I worked at the VA. I was a veterans advocate, patient advocate. Obviously, they're veterans. I worked to get their services that they deserved from their medical doctors, whether it be medications, operations, care that they needed, their families thought they needed, that maybe the VA was pushing back on. My job was to go to bat for them and make sure the right thing was done. Sometimes I won, sometimes I lost. I can be pushy. I'm kind of an ass sometimes, which is, I think, what it takes. As far as like this position, I'm going to answer some questions while I go through this. I had no spiel put together. I shoot from the hip. I am a member of DAV, VFW, whatever. I pay my dues. I don't show up and drink beer at your place. I've gotten emails from you. Ignored them. So we'll talk later. I do believe that our veterans are proud. We've heard that a few times. Veterans are a proud group of guys. We don't want to ask for help. On the flip side of that, we're kind of a bunch of badasses sometimes, right? But we're also big babies. We're scared. We're afraid to go to the VA because maybe Big Brother's watching. Who knows what's going to happen? With that being said, I've taken a couple of those guys from our community. We have not dealt with the VA folks locally because they refuse. Gotten them to the VA, gotten them care, mental health usually. We get that taken care of. One of the gents is working currently on getting some disability benefits. Hopefully that goes farther. So I'm not doing it probably through the change that y'all would like to see, that y'all strive for with our VA programs. But I think as far as outreach goes, we need to reach out with more of a Big Brother hand and maybe not be as nice as some. The guys that I've helped, I've been an ass to them because they are being selfish little babies because they're afraid to do something that's going to help them and their families. That's me in a nutshell. I shoot from the hip. I fight dirty to get what people deserve. I'm kind of crazy, obviously. But if people deserve something, they deserve it, and I'm willing to fight for it. Whether I'm on the board or not, it doesn't matter.
Awesome, appreciate
like to
that.
play.
Commissioner Smelker.
Thank you for showing up. I didn't
Yeah,
think you were going to.
I really would have rather been in Germany, but the command over there said that my itinerary was too robust, and they wanted time to go over it. So I have to go back in March now, but it's going to be worse in March.
I really appreciate your application here. I appreciate what you have done. And I think you would be a good addition to the board. That's all I have.
Commissioner Campbell.
Good morning. Amazing dedication that you would fly all the way back for this, but.
Important stuff.
And was it your son that had such good taste in the branch that he joined?
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah.
I can see that regardless where this goes today, that you're going to be a face we're all going to see, and you're going to be active.
Yeah.
And
7 years, baby. I get
Thank
to
you for
retire.
your thoughts
I gotta do something.
towards the Vietnam veterans and the plight that they.
You know, I've got family that are Vietnam veterans, and my uncles and Army.
Yeah.
He was a lifer with the jail or military program, and
Yeah, I won't hold that
retired
against
command
them.
sergeant major. So
Thank you for being here and applying, Sean.
absolutely, Bruce.
Commissioner Hatfield.
Well, thank you for your service and not only active duty service, but everything that you've been doing for the veterans. How did you really get interested in the Veterans Affairs Committee, and what kind of contact have you had with them?
I've had very little contact with the Veterans Affairs Committee. A couple phone calls, a couple talks, to help basically guide me into getting some stuff that I wasn't familiar with, but the guys I was trying to help, they weren't coming in for help. It was, drinking beers and you got to do this, and I kind of took the role on. As far as getting interested in the committee, my wife saw it advertised a couple of years ago and said, you need to do something because I'm getting sick of you. So I said, all right, let's throw my hat in the ring. Why not?
Please make sure you tell her thank you from all of us.
Commissioner Calden.
Thanks for your service. Once again, love the energy. And will it be a problem with attending will you have to fly back from Germany or somewhere every time there's a meeting? Or
Maybe, hopefully. Just no, you know what? No, I go quarterly. I do anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks at a time, whether it's going to not Afghanistan anymore, but we do some special trips over there, but mostly it's like Germany, Japan, and I'll know ahead of time. I schedule my own trips.
Okay.
Unless they say I can't come when I'm planning. But
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Commissioner Doster.
What is a cured DOD employee?
A cured?
Yeah.
What is? I don't know.
I saw that on, perhaps I read it wrong. Maybe it's a typo.
Could be. Did I type it? It's probably.
Well, you were Persian Gulf veteran
Yep.
/ cured DOD employee.
Sure.
Maybe
You're not,
current.
Like bacon.
you're not denying it.
Like bacon, maybe.
Yeah, seasoned?
Seasoned, very well-seasoned DOD employee.
All right, that's supposed to be current.
Current.
Oh, cured, current, whatever, so, you know.
I'm gonna have to talk to my admin
Okay,
people.
all right, thank you. Commissioner Getty.
Thanks for applying and thanks for your service. Your continued work for veterans, I'm sure is going to continue whether or not you're selected on the board. Thank you.
Commissioner Tunison.
Thank you for your service and absolutely what you do for other people. So I can see your passion towards that. And you obviously see there's a lot of need for, can you explain some of the things that some guys are going through? And I don't know if we all understand. I don't understand,
So I think,
you know,
I
a
heard
lot of
something
things. You know what I mean?
from somebody earlier, a lot of the stuff right now, a lot of mental health stuff, and
Yeah.
and you hear the comments, well, you don't look disabled, you don't look like you need help, and these guys, you hang out with them for a little bit, they're a wreck, a train wreck. I mean, these guys can tell you, they probably know at least a guy that they served with or that they know now that they hang out with that half the time you're like, good Lord, this guy's just dangling over the edge. We got to pull him back in, and that's the biggest thing that gets me. Sorry, my dad killed himself, so sorry.
No, you're fine. Take your time. I understand, you know, that
Get the picture.
what you guys go through after going through that, none of us that have never done this, we can't ever know your guys' feeling, how you guys were, you know,
There's a lot of mental health
impacted. Your lives were impacted for the rest of your lives. That's the thing. And obviously, you feel strongly about helping other people. And that's what the Veterans Affairs is all about. And what Ryan and Lanny do there is amazing.
You sucked my energy out of me.
I'm sorry about that, but I appreciate you, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Good questions.
Sean, I certainly appreciate your service, and especially when you said you were a patient advocate and you're going to bat for guys that just either couldn't find the focus or the energy to do it for themselves and needed that hand or that push, that we need people like that to just lead people in the right direction, because as you've heard, it's that connection to services. There's a lot of things available, but getting through the pride barrier and just the fear of the unknown sometimes to get people connected. But we've got an awesome staff and an awesome group here in Berry County. I think you'd be a good addition to that board. So I appreciate your application and your continued service. Thank you, Sean. Commissioners, that concludes the ends of our interviews for Veterans Affairs. I think we will have a hard choice when we debate these at the end of our meeting. At 9:58, why don't we take a 5 to 7 minute recess, and we'll come back and get through the rest of our agenda. Like you said, you're invited to stay for the entire meeting if you'd like. If your interview's done, you can also leave.
All right, continuing on with our agenda, Andrew Hartwell.
Good morning.
Good morning, Andrew.
I'm here to talk about exciting remonumentation contracts. I was wondering if it was. Good morning, Commissioners.
Because we have 4 new commissioners, would you give us a brief overview or an explanation of your department, what they do, and what we're looking at today?
Okay, in brevity, the remonumentation program is the physical relocation of all the county corners throughout the state of Michigan, and it's a grant that's put on annually through the state of Michigan, where it's actually a portion of the Register of Deeds money is collected and then sent to the state and then redistributed back to the counties. And every year there's a grant application, which is part of my responsibility to fill out and submit. And part of that is to get contracts for surveyors to go out and do the service, do the work to relocate the physical corners. And then the other portion of that is for a panel of surveyors to review. It would be the same surveyors that go out and do the work to review each other's work to make sure that they are in the appropriate location and meet all of the requirements, and then go on to be recorded and then submitted back to the state. So this morning, I'm asking for the approval of the 7 service contracts and the appointment of the 6 surveyors to the peer review group, and answer any questions that you may have regarding this.
Questions from commissioners?
Yes.
Commissioner Doster.
When I was on the board 30 years ago, we were working on this.
Right, yeah.
Is there any sort of light at the end of the tunnel? Will someday come when all the remonumentations will have been completed?
Well, the answer is yes and no. That's a good political answer. Yes, the actual physical remonumentation eventually of the location of all of the corners in the county will be established. In the 2020, there was a redoing of the county plan, which actually lists all of the counties corners to be remonumented. I think this last year, if Brian was here, Mr. Reynolds, he could explain which ones are complete, but I believe Orangeville Township was completed, and there was one other, but it escapes me at this moment. But once all of the this remonumentation work occurs, then it goes into a secondary phase of maintenance. And that's a lesser portion of it, where the grant is then decreased over time. And it has less work over time. So it's really just to maintain and perpetuate the corners as they exist at that moment.
Do you have a goal of a date? When the first round will be completed?
I don't know enough to answer that question, honestly. I just was appointed in October, so I'm getting my feet under me on this one, but so I don't even want us to take a stab at that.
Commissioner Hatfield.
How are things reconciled between modern technology, i.e. GPS, and the old stone monuments or lake shores or rivers or however it was originally described?
The goal of the program is to perpetuate the monuments as they were established originally. So this would have been in our area in the 1830s and 1860s. And so what the surveyors do is to gather all of the information that they have for any specific location as part of the research, and that then go out and attempt to actually locate the original monument if that's possible. I'd like to say the majority of the time they do locate the original monuments. I've seen stakes that were oak stakes that were pulled out of the ground that were placed in the ground back in 1830s. And then to perpetuate that, they use the modern technology to locate that, get the coordinates, and I guess witness it is the right word or term for it, with the current configuration of the landscape, so trees and various things that are out there. So it's a more precise location than the old rods and chains measurements that they've done, but it is to keep the original location. So it then can be used for various other things, such as surveys for parcels and mapping and the likes. Does that answer your question, sir?
Probably as well as it can be.
Okay, all right.
Go ahead, Commissioner Galt.
I don't know if this has anything to do with the monumentation of it, but I know I have a business on the main street of Nashville, and the whole main street, at some point in time, they had to make a correction of like 3 feet. Are you familiar with this?
I am not, but I've worked in a land department for a long time, and I've come across these.
I kind of felt ripped off because my neighbor got 3 feet of my land, but then there's a building that abuts my building. I can't take 3 feet of that building.
Right, and I'm gonna take a guess that that had to do with a survey, a plat, a subdivision plat, within Nashville, and it was some reconciliation between what the plat said and what, that's just my guess, and what was monumented.
Yeah, because I don't know how that came about. I didn't understand if it had to do with monuments or satellites or.
I can't speak directly to without actually a little more information as to why, because there's various reasons why a plat would change. And when you get into certain areas, I mean, some of these plats were made back, subdivision plats were made back in, the early or late 1800s, early 1900s, and some of them were really just rough sketches that were placed out there. And so when you start to put the paper to the physical landscape, things can change over time and the like. So I've seen in other places in my previous life and job where the rivers moved and over the last 100 years, and there was one farm on one side that gained and there was one that lost, very similar, but I know the road didn't necessarily move, so maybe that had something to do with the road configuration. I can't speak directly to that, sir.
Is there a percentage of completion as far as remonumentation in the county?
I'm sure there is, but I don't have those numbers. Actually, I was hoping to talk to, not to put Ivan on the spot, but to get some sort of dashboard up so we could actually just show the general public and the commissioners how much has been done and what's going to be completed in the future. And I know Ivan and I have talked in the recent past about making sure that these corners are available to public use as well.
Grant funding consistent? No
Yeah.
major changes in the grant funding?
No, I mean, it goes up and down depending on the year because this is all based on how many deeds are recorded in any given year across the state. So, that's all collected and then distributed through the, whatever calculations magic that the state has. But yeah, as far as I can see, it's been rather consistent. Last year, I think was right around 58,000. This year's 62,639. I actually anticipated that.
Additional questions? Commissioner Smelker?
If I remember right, we don't do corners in the state ground, right? Like in Yankee Springs?
I am not positive if they added those corners into the program in 2020 or not. In 2020, the counties, all of the counties throughout the state of Michigan had to come up with their official list to get a count because there was an audit at the state, and the state didn't know how many were done and how many needed to be done yet. And so I can't give you that answer right offhand. Some places they do, and some places they don't. But I'm not sure if those were added in Berry County or not.
Okay, and the other thing I got are, you having any trouble getting surveyors to do them? I may be wrong, but it just looks to me like the list is shorter.
I think last year there were 8, and there was one contract that had to be terminated. That was prior to me coming aboard, and it was a lack of ability for them to perform the service contract. But that surveyor did perform their duties on the peer review group, which was very helpful. So there is not an abundance of surveyors, I would say, but we do have a good group to work with at the moment.
Thank you very much for what you do.
Thank you.
Additional questions? With that, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to enter into the attached 2023 monumentation surveyor agreements and authorize the chairperson and grant administrator
administrator to sign the attached agreements on behalf of the county.
So moved.
Support. Motion by Getty, support by Hatfield, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to enter into the attached 2023 monumentation surveyor agreements and authorize the chairperson and grant administrator to sign the attached agreements on behalf of the county. Discussion?
I am a little bit hesitant in approving a contract that we don't see where the progress has been or what the end game is, but
I think this is a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, so we can have Andrew come back next week and give us
Absolutely.
a few more details, if you would, as far as the percentage of completion, maybe the goal date for completion. I know that when we were talking last year, it was amazing the number of points in the county, but it's also, I think it was pretty impressive with the progress, and I want to say it was in the 60 or almost 70 percentile, but
If Brian was here, he would be able to answer that question more accurately, but I will track that down for next week.
thank you.
in these contracts are pretty boilerplate as well.
Yes.
These are the same contracts we've been using year over year.
To my understanding.
That's what I thought, so.
Yep.
Good question. Further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. We have one more item with Andrew, and that's the approval of our surveyors. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to appoint the following licensed surveyors to the Berry County Remonumentation Peer Review Board for 2023 and authorize the chairperson to sign the attached 2023 agreements for peer review services on behalf of the county.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Smelker, support by Hatfield, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to appoint the following licensed surveyors to the Berry County Remonumentation Peer Review Board for 2023 and authorize the chairperson to sign the attached 2023 agreements for peer review services on behalf of the county. Those surveyors: Stephen C. Corber with Arrow Land Survey, Michael P. Pratt with Crane Land Survey PC, Cameron Reed Lear with Excel Engineering Inc., Randall J. Jonker with Jonker Land Surveys PC, Rodney Lee Bredewig with Land and Resource Engineering, LRE, and Ryan Miller with R.D. Miller Land Surveying. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. We'll see you next week, and if you could bring us some updated information, that would be appreciated.
I shall.
Next up, David Shinovar, Berry County Information Technology, for our annual review of our technology policy. Good morning, David.
Join me. We do require an annual review of our information security technology policy, but I wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to, especially new commissioners and maybe some of your existing commissioners, I'd let you know what's happening over there in the Titan Center where our office is. We have two divisions, Land Information Services and Information Technology. Information Technology, I am the coordinator, director. The man behind the curtain here is Ivan, who's the one who really gets things done. So first of all, I'm going to talk about Land Information Services real briefly, although Commissioner Jackson did indicate I had an hour, so maybe I'm just settling in here.
Ish. Hour.
Ish, okay. This department, Land Information Services, was developed 32 years ago. I happen to know it was particularly July 22nd, 1991, because that was my hire date. So that was the start of this department. I was hired on to create tax mapping principally. The county didn't have any and was required to have tax parcel mapping. And it grew tremendously from there, and I eventually worked my way into some IT functionality, and that went that direction. But first of all, we're going to talk about Land Information Services, and we're going to try this new technology here. So, who we work with. Our customers, if you will, from a mapping standpoint, all the county departments, well, almost all the county departments. And so on this slide, I indicated in red kind of the specific types of things that we do or have done, say, in the past year for each of these county departments. And one thing you'll notice with Land Information Services and IT is it's kind of a niche for us is that we deal with across the board all departments. So we're not pigeonholed in terms of who we work with and when we work with them. And then other partner agencies that are not necessarily county departments, and I put local units in red because that is of particular importance to the local units and us. We are the go-to countywide for all local units of government in terms of mapping and land information. So that is particularly important to them and to us. We've recently struck up some real good relationships with the Road Commission and, sorry, my vision, I'm right in between glasses and no glasses here. Central Dispatch has always been a strong relationship there, obviously, for their computer dispatch. And we've been working with the Chamber recently as well on broadband mapping. So let's go to the next. We've been producing that, I believe, since 1997 in conjunction with the Road Commission. So this is our most recent one of those. Again, you can look at these up close. It's just some examples. This is kind of what Ivan has prepared as day-to-day type of work. So if you were to come and visit at any particular time, these are the things that would be going on. Public service, so Mike's question regarding the 300 or the 3 feet in Nashville, that is precisely the type of question that we would typically get in our office from a walk-in person. 2 to 3 times a day, walk-in people come in and they'll be interested, maybe they want to sell or they want to buy, and they're confused about their tax description, or the tax description doesn't match the deed. Any variety of questions that we can try to help them with. So that's why that's at the top. There's a reason why public service is at the top of that list. And I've lost my mouse somewhere. Luella, can you move the mouse to the smallest window? We have 4, we're working 6 monitors here, so if the pointer gets off, again, 911 maintenance, we're a capital project that we do for mapping every 5 to 6 years is new aerial photography. So this is the year for us. We're pretty excited about it. I know, and likely late March, April, when the snow is gone, on a bright sunny day, you will see a plane flying back and forth, high in the sky, and if that's curious to you, it's taking pictures for us. We will use those for the next 5 years for just about everything that we do. We're working with the Drain Commissioner more than ever. I have a project with them. Let's see, what else do I have? For the Road Commission, I mentioned. We work with the Treasurer's Office almost on a daily basis. And so, without getting too far into that, our main product is called Fetch. I don't know how many of you have seen Fetch or used Fetch. Fetch is our online, we're going to go right into it. Actually, I'm going to let Ivan drive here, except I lost it again. We're cutting ground here, trying to. Hey, Aaron, can you go move? It's just behind another window. Fetch is online mapping. It's something Fetch is just the name of the company that we contract with. we provide all the information and how it works, and thank you. Yep. So there's a link to this on our website. The interesting thing about this program, Fetch, is that it receives 425 sessions a day. Fetch has a lot of other clients, I don't know, 30, 40 other counties. They've told us that ours is the most used. We put a lot of information out there, a lot of public information. It's mostly used by the mortgage industry. People looking up title offices, banks, real estate agents is basically the main thrust of it. And so that's why it receives so much traffic. Ivan has been putting a lot of time into bolster this up, which has also made the user much more users than we used to have. Like I said, 400 users a day we think is pretty significant. So you want to go over some of the layers on there?
Yeah, so in addition to all the property information that's available there, we have a number of other things, points of interest, for example, things that might be of interest to the general public. A lot of these are more recent. One of the things we did in the past year or so is Parks and Recreation. So all the trails, all the different types of Parks and Rec related locations are in there as well. Let's see, we've done sidewalks. That's a relatively recent one, just showing where every sidewalk in the county is. Let's see. Library service areas is a relatively new one as well, just to kind of communicate to people if they have library service and who it's available from. And then some of these other things are just more property related sections, kind of related to remonumentation, like we were just talking about. And then other things like school districts, commissioner districts.
Could you talk a little closer to the microphone?
Yeah, I'm sorry. And then again, some of the other more recent things, apartments, mobile home parks, just to kind of provide, anything that people might be interested in, just make sure it's all available to them.
You might be thinking, well, why do we do this? We have Google. The difference here is the localization. We have control over what's there, and we have much more information there than what you would find on Google. And if you want to zoom into like the courthouse, for instance, or FOC would be a good one. So what Google doesn't have and probably won't have for the foreseeable future is property information. So there's the tax record for the FOC building. And that's really what the mortgage industry, the banking industry needs. I mean, if they don't get it here, this is public information. If they don't get it here, they're calling or they're coming in like they used to do 32 years ago and sending people here. Now it's all available there. So that's the kind of granular information that they would find here as opposed to on a Google map.
David, are you taking those aerial photos with the plane that you do every 5 years and putting them on Fetch?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's our information that you're...
That is not a Google map, no.
That is not a Google map. Okay, that is our personal information that you guys acquire.
Yep. The new photos we're getting will be at a higher resolution. I don't know that we will put the highest resolution photos that we have online. There's a couple reasons for that. One is the size. They're just the storage size, which would cause them to display slower. So I think what we have here, is this 1 foot?
It's 1 foot or 6 inch.
1 foot or 6 inch resolution. The new photos always get a little bit better, a little bit clearer, but so the new photos may be 6 inch resolution. But.
You have a question, Jen?
Yeah, I see on the FOC building there, that looks like the old one. Some of that parking lot isn't ours now, or hasn't there been any
That
paperwork?
photo would
done? Is
be
this correct?
18?
You mean the property boundary where the FOC is? Yeah, so the property boundaries, obviously they're changing all the time as the result of various transactions. And then we get that information on an annual basis from the local assessors.
Annual.
Yep, so, and that's something that, I think there's some interest in increasing the cadence of those updates in the future. But historically and for the time being, annually is how often we get that information.
Thank you very much. That answers my question.
That line has not changed yet.
They haven't,
That has not changed on there based on the parcel that General Capital purchased.
yeah, I noticed that, yeah.
I have a comment that, another good service that I think this provides is if you think your taxes are too high, you can look up all your neighbors' tax parcels or like parcels, and it's excellent evidence to take to the tax tribunal. It's very easy to see whether your taxes are too high or not.
Yeah, absolutely. You can do your own research, sure.
Just another thank you, because another great example of how this information can be used. The City of Hastings Planning Commission has been working on making some changes in permitted occupancy from, single family to duplex to multifamily, and in trying to decide how to do that, these guys were extraordinarily helpful in providing us with information that located 2, 3, 4 dwelling units so that we could get an idea of where in the city they're currently located and what the concentrations are.
Excellent.
Can you look up zoning or planned, the 5-year planned for what the property is to be?
But zoning, well, actually, I'll let Ivan answer that question.
Okay.
I hear him answer this question all the time with people, and so he's got it down why we can't necessarily do that.
Yeah, we provide a separate product of zoning maps. The reason we don't put it in here on Fetch is there are a few kind of technical reasons. One of the reasons is that although Berry County does have zoning jurisdiction over a number of townships within the county, some of the townships do their own zoning. And so we kind of don't want to get in the way of them providing that information on their own because they're the authoritative source of it. And some parcels, the reason it would be a little tricky to put zoning information in there is you do have a number of parcels where there are different types of zoning on a single parcel. And so if we were to tell you this parcel is zoned whatever, that may not always be 100% accurate. So we do provide those, and then we always encourage people to work directly with either our planning and zoning department or their local planning and zoning department, because then they'll get, the original authoritative source of the information, and then also that assistance, should there be interest in doing rezoning or just clarification on what's permitted in a certain zoning district.
A zoning map is is a legal document, so that's why we prepare them for local units, but in terms of like maintenance, it becomes a little bit tricky. So. Is this zoomed in all the way? You might notice, I just got to point this out. All those ants there. It just happened to be that when they did this in 18, it was the morning of the Barry-Roubaix. I just think that's the greatest. So that's what, all those are bikers. And you can see, the traffic in town, and you can actually, of course, on my lunch hour, I followed the bikers all the way out and around. And, yeah, it's pretty interesting. You see all the little dots there. Things that excite mappers.
There you go. There you go.
Okay.
All right, well, that's halftime.
That is impressive to see all the things involved in
Thanks,
land
Ivan.
information services.
Now we'll bring in general number 2 and see if I can manipulate. Okay, how about that? Information technology. Look at my notes here. This department has 5 people. Aaron sitting here to my right is the deputy director and security director. We have Matt Ward. You probably all met. If you haven't, stop over. We are in the Titan Center. Matt's been with us 6 years, I believe. Leslie has been with us going on 4. Aaron?
15.
25, 32. We have 55 years of experience with Berry County between the 4 of us. I'm pretty proud of that in this day and age. So that's who we are. We're funded general fund, which is also LIS is funded from the general fund as well. And capital items come out of the technology fund, which I was going to have Michael explain, but maybe next time. So we'll move along here. We serve all the county departments as their IT go-to. There are 3 there with asterisks. That is because they buy their own equipment because they have their own budget. That's Charlton Park, COA, and Transit. So from a labor standpoint or help desk standpoint, they're fully on board with us and we support them. But if they need new equipment or renewals or software, we usually do the purchasing for them, but it comes out of their budget. As well, we have some townships that are or villages that are on contract with us, listed there, in which case we bill for time and materials, and it's a basic one-page agreement we have with those units. And then Central Dispatch is more of just a partnership. We don't have any type of agreement with them. They have their own IT people, but we share resources back and forth. So that's kind of our structure.
How long have you been charging townships on a time and?
Well,
material
like I said,
basis?
right now it's just the one, Assyria. We've probably been under that agreement. So they were having a lot of problems with their vendor and just were not happy and weren't getting things done. And so they asked if we could help them out. They only have 3 computers.
3 computers and 1 server.
Yeah, and so.
But you provide like zoning maps and special assessment district maps to the townships for free, don't you?
No.
No.
We print, well, we charge them for printing.
Oh.
And it's, I'm trying to think, it's something that's done so rarely. If, going backwards here to LIS, if Thornapple Township, for instance, is working with an engineering firm to work on their plan, we would provide that engineering firm under a data sharing agreement, information for free. So that, and then the township would be aware of that agreement so that they would know that the engineer got all the information.
Oh.
So there are data sharing agreements that go back and forth. From an IT standpoint, this was us, they asked us to step in and help out. Like I said, it's a one-page deal. In the past year, we've probably done 10 or 15 hours of work for Assyria Township, maybe a little bit more for Nashville. Hasn't been overwhelming. It certainly is a concern in the future that if 10 other townships wanted to jump on board, then we'd have to consider another solution for sure. But that's right now it's working well. Quick numbers. So we're supporting approximately 300 users, 500 devices, not PCs, laptops, tablets, and servers, right around 500 of those amongst 300 users. Help desk request, 4,900 last year. A good portion of those are requests to free up quarantine email. So if I really cut that number, it's really about 50 requests a week is what it comes down to for a whole variety of things that people need assistance with. So I would say 50 a week is a good number. We support 100+ software applications. So not counting the register of deeds and the clerk's office, which their scanning software is an online software, so all their images are stored online, not here. Locally, we do document management, and that last count last week, and this is growing exponentially, we were at 3.5 million pieces of paper that have been scanned and stored. If you add in register deeds and clerk, it would be over 10 million, I'm sure. So that's a lot of information. Our website gets about 750 visits a day, so not insignificant. We receive 4,200 emails a day through our email servers amongst 300 users, and half of those are infected or worthless or spam or whatever. So legitimate emails is less than half. It's very frustrating. It always has been frustrating to me that half of the traffic buzzing around out there is useless, but that's just the way it is. On a day-to-day basis, this is what's going on. We're working on the county website always. First and foremost is, let me go back, network security. The biggest focus of what we do. We manage telephones, I mentioned help desk, audio visual, for the courts and for the board meetings. We manage the security cameras in the buildings on this campus, to door access control, I mentioned document management, asset management, purchasing is a big one. And I just wanted to let you know that we use 5 different broadband service providers to do what we need to do because of the locations that we serve and what's available there and backup and redundancy and all that. So lot to manage there in terms of contracts and such. Our most recent one is Starlink. That's been interesting. Starlink is the Elon Musk satellites. And so that is now working out at Charlton Park and working well. What do we got?
Commissioner Gannon, question?
Well, thank you for the Starlink at Charlton Park. It's made a big difference.
Yes.
Most of the time I can communicate back and forth with Dan Patton now. Will any of the service area of TrueStream come into play in any of the county resources?
I would think, we are set in the other ones. I would think the one that it may affect would be Charlton Park. Everything else, we have solid broadband right now. Unless they're less money and we want to switch to them.
Right.
But our other service providers have been pretty solid. So there wouldn't be a reason to change necessarily, except at Charlton Park, although that has been
really good.
Been really good as well.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, with Great Lakes Energy and TrueStream, it's a fiber connection.
Yeah.
Versus
Always
some of the
preferred,
others.
yes.
Yeah. I don't know that Charlton Park is Great Lakes Energy. No.
I don't.
I believe it's consumers.
Yeah, they won't be serviced then.
So challenges, I mentioned security, I can't mention it enough. It's what Aaron is, a wasp. It's what Aaron spends the majority of his time doing and what keeps us up at night. It definitely, and we have a lot of tools to mitigate. The most important one, I will say this over and over again, is people. We can do all these things. We can get email scanning, we can get next-gen firewalls, we can get virus protection on our computers, policies, updating, patching, you can do all that, but the experts will tell you that your employees, your workforce, and their ability to spot invalid emails or not click on things they shouldn't click on is far and away the number one thing that you can do. And so we do have a security awareness training program. These are also things that keep us up at night: digital storage, backup, disaster recovery. If we do get hit, are we in a position to recover quickly? And this all costs dollars. So these services some of these services that we pay for on a subscription basis are in the neighborhood of $16,000 to $20,000 a year for those subscriptions. I would venture that that's probably half the cost of what some other counties pay, because on the back side of things, we have a local expert who is masterminding all those things. And so we don't consult very much of that stuff out. We don't consult any of that stuff out. We do it in-house in terms of managing all those tools. Big plus. So the last thing is the county diagram. I'll just let Aaron kind of talk about this. If you have questions, that's why he's here, to answer tough questions. See if I can, I gotta try to find it. Hey, there we go. Okay, so this is a required document. So what I'm going to ask after this presentation is that you approve the Berry County Information Technology Services Policy, Security Policy. It is a required policy for CJIS, criminal justice, audits, county audit, risk management, FOC. So all those oversight agencies require that a county or local jurisdiction have an information security policy, and that it be reviewed and updated annually. So that's principally, that's the main, that's what we're here for ultimately, is, and I can highlight some of the changes from last year to this year, but that's what that's all about. And that was in your packet. That being said, we have 17 locations that we manage. And the man at the controls here sitting to my right, we want to just talk about some of the different connectivity that we have.
So because we're so spread out, we don't really have one size fits all for connections. A lot of our sites are miles away, so we'll use encrypted tunnels to push traffic between their firewall and our firewall, or if they're in close proximity and we have good elevation, like to the road commission, we use like long-range point-to-point wireless to build those connections out. So we have fiber between multiple buildings, and we also use a lot of copper as well too. So that's, if it's a shorter run, if it's within 320 feet, we can utilize copper. So using wireless, fiber, copper, and then a lot of VPN connections as well too, to bring the connections together and kind of knit everything. So and it's just continuing to grow. So.
Yeah, it has, this is not something that happened overnight. This started with, I like to tell people that story. When I started 32 years ago, I had the first PC in the courthouse, and I had the first color monitor in 1991. It's hard to believe, but people come down to look at the color monitor Dave had. And 32 years, and it's grown to this, which looks like chaos, but it's not. It's organized chaos. So if you have any questions for Aaron how this is all structured, I'm sure he can handle it.
When we're connected to 911, I believe we have wireless?
Nope, we are connected to them via fiber. And
How
then,
long's that been here?
over a year, because they had to do it when they did that Zerker project. That was part of the requirements for it. And then the fiber is not, because we lease the fiber from Berry County Telephone, that fiber is actually plugged into each end of our firewalls, and then that's encrypted, so the traffic is actually treated like an outside internet connection. So the traffic from our end to their end is it's fully encrypted across that tunnel link, because it's got to go miles outside of town. So, but yes, they are on fiber.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
No, did you want to cover some of the highlights?
Yeah, I will go through that,
Policy?
I will go through that quickly. So, yeah, the policy, every year, like I said, I come back here, and usually the changes are minor, cosmetic, maybe spelling errors, or maybe some technology has changed. Page 11 of the policy, we specified that, I don't think, I don't have this on the screen, but that individual email boxes are backed up nightly and retained for 10 days. So that is something we added because we didn't have anything about email retention in our policy. So what that means is if a user deletes something, it would go to their deleted items folder and it would sit there forever. But if you deleted it from that folder, we could only recover it for 10 days. So it's really incumbent on the user in terms of retention and what they want to delete permanently and what they want to just leave in that deleted items folder. So we wanted to clarify our position on that. They're not being archived, they're not being stored somewhere in perpetuity. It's essentially when you clear your deleted items folder in Outlook, it's basically 10 days at that point. Not basically, it is. Another major, we rewrote our security incident response plan, and that is Appendix D. That is required by CJIS.
So essentially, the front of the court had an audit by, it was DHS, I believe, and we had an audit by CJIS, which is sponsored through the FBI. So essentially, all these agencies for a long time had varying policies, and they've kind of standardized everything under NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards. And so we've taken that policy essentially and digested that into our policy so that it's mirroring essentially the policies that the state and the federal level are utilizing. So,
So when INES has to turn this policy in, or when the Sheriff's Department has to turn this policy in, when they get audited, we're all using the same thing. We're using the same policy. You will not find that policy in your packet because it's considered confidential, Appendix D, but you're certainly welcome to come over to our office and.
good read.
Very good read, yes. So let's see what else here. Other changes we made are compliance with our security awareness policy in terms of requirements. So we're moving to a system where when you get onboarded, when you become an employee here, you're required to complete some security awareness training videos. So there are just kind of some rules about that, whether the employee or not decides not to do that, or and so there's some remediation for that. Also, occasionally we will send out emails that are they're called phishing emails. We're trying to identify who can identify the bad stuff. They're simulated, of course, and so if you fail one of those, you get sent to remediation school of how to deal with emails.
Can we just turn our iPad in?
Some of you should.
The remediation training, the security awareness training it's like 25 minutes. It's cartoons. It's not bad. It's actually enjoyable. It can be fun. So that is a new change to the way we used to do things. And then we also made some changes to the policy regarding surveillance cameras. This has to do with the Court Security Committee and just some minor things. There's a camera on the ground floor that allows the registered deeds to keep an eye on those public workstations. So there's an exemption for that camera. So, yeah, other than that, everything other than that, there was some stuff in there, but that's essentially the policy. If you have any questions regarding the policy, we sure hope we can answer them.
Just one question. You had mentioned that you guys do a lot of this in-house, as far as IT services, security, network security, stuff like that. And I noticed there is a section in there for security audits. Do we use outside contractors to try to break into our network to see where there's weaknesses or where there are issues or where we can be better? Because obviously that battle is, doesn't stop on a day-to-day basis. That's 24/7, so.
We just went through it with Friend of the Court. Part of their audit process is they had Trace3 come in and perform a pen test on the FOC side of the network. So we do have on occasion where, you know, per requirements of the state or whatnot, or just off of our own volition, that we'll have an outside pen test performed.
How are we doing on this? Can you share those results with us, or?
Yeah, we have the document. I wouldn't necessarily want to share them, you know. We did very well on the last one. It's been about every 2 years, I would say, on average, that we have those, but that, you make a very good point. When you get used to staring at the same thing every day for years or months, and it can never replace another set of eyes from the outside. So, but the state initiative by the FOC to mandate audits has helped, because 2 years ago, when they did it the first time, we were able to buy in and have the whole county, our whole system audited. Last year, they just audited FOC. So this year, if we're doing every 2 years, yeah, we should probably consider maybe in the fall another what they call a pen test. So.
Awesome. It's just, like you said, 4,900 requests, 10 million documents, 5 different broadbands, 17 locations, and 300 employees that could hit an email at any given time and crack the code. So that's concerning.
I will say this, like, it happens every day. Like, I see attempts on the network every single day, people trying to either run an exploit on something, trying to hit the email server, trying to attack the firewall. Like, it's every single day, and we get an alert generated every time that they do it. And it's not, we do a lot of restrictions, so a lot of outside countries and stuff cannot get to our network, but you still see attacks internally from within IP addresses that originate from within the US, and it's pretty, not a day goes by that there's not something, so.
Gentlemen, we are a grateful board that you do what you do, and I think it's been very educational to see land information services and IT and all the things that run through your office. I wasn't aware myself that all that stuff actually goes on, so that was very educational. Any further questions from commissioners? Commissioner Getty.
I just have a comment as someone who worked on the front lines with residents and the access to Fetch and to your department. They do an amazing service so that residents can get their own information, and they access it all the time. So, you know, thank you for all that you guys do.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. Further questions? Have a great day, gentlemen. You are appreciated. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the revised Berry County Information Technology Policy.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Hatfield, supported by Getty, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the revised Berry County Information Technology Policy. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Commissioners, it's 11:02. We have a few short things on our agenda to get through and some public comment. Does anybody need a break, or do you want to continue with our appointments?
I'm okay.
Everybody okay? Okay. Next on our agenda, reappointment of Road Commission Representative Frank Falla to the Solid Waste Oversight Committee. The chair would recommend a motion to approve the appointment of representative to serve on the Solid Waste Oversight Committee. Approval to reappoint Frank Fiala to serve on the Berry County Solid Waste Oversight Committee in a position representing the Road Commission for a one-year term that began on 1/1/23 and expires on 12/31/2023, as approved by the Berry County Road Commission on December 20th, 2022.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Smelker, support by Getty, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reappoint Frank Fiala to serve on the Berry County Solid Waste Oversight Committee in the position representing the Road Commission for a one-year term that began on 1/1/23 and expires on 12/31/2023, as approved by the Berry County Road Commission on December 20th, 2022. Discussion.
That's Frank.
That is Frank. Hi, Frank. Frank, you have been on that committee for how long?
About 15 years.
15 years, okay. Safe to say he knows what he's doing, at least in my experience, so. But no further discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Next up, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint Craig Stolzenberg to serve on the Berry County Solid Waste Oversight Committee as a village representative for the remainder of the three-year term that began on 1/1/20 and expires on 10/31/23.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Colleton, support by Hatfield, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint Craig Stolzenberg to serve on the Berry County Solid Waste Oversight Committee as a village representative for the remainder of a three-year term that began on 1/1/20 and expires on 10/31/23. Discussion.
Was there a resignation on that, or since it's a remainder of a term?
Catherine might be able to address some of that in your district, but there's been several resignations, and they've, Craig is the new city manager for the city of Middleville, so.
Patty Rail resigned, and she was a village manager there when she left that position some time ago. So it's a second.
Yeah, absolutely. Further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reappoint Dan King and appointment of Craig Stolzenberg to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority for a three-year term that began on January 1st, 2023, ending December 31st, 2025.
So moved.
Motion by Hatfield, is there support?
Support.
Support by Campbell. Motion by Hatfield, support by Campbell, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reappoint Dan King and appoint Craig Stolzenberg to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority for a three-year term beginning January 1st, 2023 and ending December 31st, 2025. Discussion. Standard appointment, we do these every year, so, especially when there's a need. I'll allow a question.
I was just wondering if you had updated any of your brownfield redevelopment stuff online. The last thing I just was 2017.
We'll look into that and see. I'll make a note. Thank you, Pat. Further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Next, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the attached letter to the Office of the Secretary of Transportation supporting the Berry County Road Commission's rebuilding of the American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity RAISE grant application.
So moved, Oster.
Support.
Motion by Doster, support by Getty, to approve the attached letter to the Office of the Secretary of Transportation supporting the Berry County Road Commission's Rebuilding America Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity grant application. I talked to Jake, who is the incoming director, and this is an opportunity to just apply just for some money to fix some bridges in, I think it was explained in there.
Bridge crossings on the Thornapple, isn't it?
Bridge crossing.
Little
Yeah.
Thornapple.
On the Little Thorn.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty significant opportunity that they said they would not have funding to do this
Mhm.
in their lifetime. So it's a pretty substantial opportunity to create some money. All they're asking for is a letter to support, a letter of support on our letterhead. This is an action that will be approved today. It was a pretty short time window, so we can get this done in administration to get that sent out, so. Questions or discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Finally, on our agenda, we have discussion and decision on interviews with the Veterans Affairs Committee. These continue to be tough because we have so many great applications. And I can't tell you how appreciative we are for our veterans that apply for these positions, and knowing that we only have 3 positions. We had 6 applicants, and 6 really good applicants. There's, any one of them would fit. I'm muted? Now you tell me. I think it was done on purpose. People have been trying to mute me for a long time, but, okay, so, we have a lot of good applicants. Any discussion before we vote?
Are we going to vote like we did on the other?
We are going to vote exactly as it did before. The clerk will call your name, and if you could choose 3 representatives that you liked from your interviews that you would put on there, and then we'll tally, and we'll do a tally and make a motion as needed when we hit that point, when we have 3 candidates. So, any further discussion, insight?
You going? Boy, we're just getting to the good stuff.
Thank you, Sean. No further questions? Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Colton. Martin Kredovic, Shannon Suzkala, and Sean Ricketts.
Campbell.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
We got 2 full-times and a part-time. Should he designate who goes to what? Or are you going to do it after it's done?
Let's do it after it's done. Let's decide on 3 candidates, and then we'll decide on the slots.
Thank you for letting me ask.
Yes.
Campbell.
Alexander, Kredovic, and Suzkala.
Doster.
Alexander, Kredovic, Suzkala.
Getty.
Alexander, Zuzkala, and Ricketts.
Hatfield.
Alexander, Suzkala, and Ricketts.
Smoker.
Alexander, Sukala, and Ricketts. Ricketts for partial. Wanted to get that in.
Tunison.
Alexander, Zukala, Ricketts.
Jackson.
Alexander, Zukala, and Ricketts.
7 for Alexander. 3 for Kratovic. Zukala, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. Ricketts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay.
So would you agree?
Following the interviews, we have Charles Alexander, Shannon Zukala, and Sean Ricketts. The chair would entertain a motion following the interviews to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint Charles Alexander and Sean Zukala on the Berry County Veterans Affairs Committee for the 4-year terms that begin on 1/1/23 and expires 12/31/26, and to appoint Sean Ricketts to serve a partial term that began on 1/1/21 and ends on 12/31/24.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Smelker, support by Hatfield to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint or reappoint Charles Alexander and Sean Zukala on the Berry County Veterans Affairs Committee for a 4-year term that begin on 1/1/23 and expires on 12/31/26, and to appoint Sean Ricketts to the partial term that began on 1/1/21 and ends on 12/31/24. All those in discussion?
No, that's fine.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Commissioners. Again, I'd like to figure out how to retain some of those quality people to help out in Veterans Affairs or other areas, because there were some fantastic candidates that we interviewed today.
I agree.
Some fantastic candidates.
Every one of these boards that we've had to pick have been fantastic candidates.
We've been blessed to have some good interviewers. At this point, limited public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Pat
Jameson, South Bowens Mills. I just forgot to mention one other thing about the blue zones. They want to put a roundabout in Middleville. They wanted one in front of Walmart. That's ridiculous. Come on now. Thanks.
Thank you, Pat. Is there further public comment? Going once? Going twice?
Wait a
Oops,
minute.
come on.
Ryan Condon, Berry County Veteran Affairs. I just wanted to thank the board. We did have some really good applicants today. I wouldn't have wanted to be in your position to make those decisions. I will do an orientation with the new board members that have been appointed today to make sure they're on the up and up, and I will be working with them also to figure out how to reach out to as many veterans in Berry County as we can going forward. So, thank you.
And if you haven't had a chance to meet Ryan, Ryan is the new director, so feel free to stop in, meet with Ryan. Welcome to Berry County.
Thank you. I've been here almost 5 years, but in this position, very recent, and then I just shaved my beard, so if you don't notice me because of that, that's why. But
Are you done with your public comment?
I am,
We
sir.
didn't want to interrupt you. Commissioner Smelker.
Do you keep these applications, you know, sometimes we have people resign, and these applications on file, would I think you keep, don't you?
We do keep them on file, as well as after I receive who has applied for the position, I then do the research to make sure they're qualified applicants before they reach the board here. I keep all of that information, including their DD-214s, locked up, but in a spot where I can look back on them, and if we do have an opening pop up, I am able to see who has applied in the past, that we can contact them to see if they still have interest in reapplying for the board.
Thank you, Ryan.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Additional public comment? Commissioner comments. Does any commissioner have anything they'd like to share with the board? Additional comments?
I'd like to thank Commissioner Smelker for being willing to trade a committee with me, mental health for airport. My question was, does that then have to be ratified by the board, or does that just go by the wayside? Or
Commissioner comments are typically appointments, so I don't believe they have to be ratified by the board, but we will research that with Michael Brown. to
Did
be
you have a
sure
question?
unless-
That was kind of a three-way thing.
Yeah.
Oh.
I took your spot on airport, but.
You took my spot.
Oh, wow, interesting.
So, yeah.
And we also had a question on the DPW that Brad Lambert was questioning when he had ever been appointed and whether there was a term for that.
I think it's,
He's on it forever regardless.
That's what he was afraid of.
I think it is the head of the road commission's on, isn't it?
That would be a question for Michael as
It's
well.
just like the drain commissioner is always on it. I think road commissioner is always on it.
Okay.
But
So it'll probably
maybe
be Jake next year. So, comments? Additional comments?
Well, I got a
Commissioner
comment.
Thompson.
Last week when we picked that, the Commission on Aging new board, I wanted to mention Sharon Zabrowski did not reapply, but the amount of years in service that she gave to that organization and to Shelton Park, I just want to recognize you, okay, for all your good service that you've done.
Absolutely.
And one more thing I'd like to touch on is Commissioner Hatfield was talking about the rezoning of the city to get more dense housing. And I really think that that's something that the county needs to take a look at that too, because it might help some older people maybe stay in their home if they could rent out their basement, or they can renovate their pole barn into an apartment. There's some things that we can look at that other counties have looked at to alleviate some of the housing problems that we're having, and because the housing problem is not going to go away, it's just going to get worse. So people are having a hard time. My wife and I own rental properties, and we're constantly being asked about renting. So, and I know it's a problem, and I just think that if the city's looking at it, because they are, you're dearly looking at figuring out how to keep people in their homes and also to get more use out of their place. So if we could maybe possibly take a look at that someday too, so.
I know the county's in the process of updating their 5-year master plan. So it's a very extensive process where they go through and look at urban zones, and they're also looking at some of the same things as far as what they can do to make it easier to put multifamily housing in place. The issue is always, as you know, that everybody's in favor of it except in their backyard. So, right?
Unfortunately, yes.
So.
But, I mean, if a person's got 10 acres and they've got a pole barn sitting there, they could easily put another well and a septic field there. And they could rent their pole barn out if they're not using it anymore. You know what I mean? And as long as it's a homesteaded property, that would be the problem that you would run into, is that all of a sudden they move out and they try renting out the house and the barn, okay? And they're not living there anymore. That's the problem that you end up with that, and that will always be the question that people will ask, is how do you stop that?
Right.
Okay.
Well, hopefully with the continued expansion of Harvest Point, you know, to allow seniors some assisted living options, that'll free some space up. I know Dave and I, being on the Economic Development Board, they've talked about, I thought it was 300, but at last time I thought Jennifer said there were 400 planned units coming into the county in the near future in 23 and 24. So they are making some great strides to alleviate the problem. It's just not something we can snap our fingers and take care of overnight.
I understand that.
But good insight. Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. We've reached the end of our agenda. I want to thank my fellow commissioners for 3 or 4 very long meetings with a lot of interviews and a lot of very good interviews. So we'll see if we can get us into a shorter meeting sometime. So